Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Council Committee for October the 8th. Dean, call to order, please.
Mover and seconder, please.
Alan and Betty.
Moved by Councilor Wren, second by Councilor King, that the Council and Committee meeting of October 8th, 2024 be called to order at 5:30.
All in favor? Carried. Roll call, Dean, please.
Mayor Bennett.
Present.
Reeve Watt.
Present.
Councilor Goche.
Present.
Councilor Hewitt.
Present.
Councilor Hughley.
Present.
Councilor King.
Present.
Councilor Wren.
Present.
All members present.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Wendy and Brian.
Moved by Councilor Hewitt, second by Councilor Hughley, that the agenda of the Council Committee meeting of October 8th, 2024 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Delegations. Kevin, welcome. Nevada, do you want to introduce Kevin, if you would, please?
I'd like to introduce Kevin Jones. He's the senior consultant at Paradigm Transportation Solutions, and he is here to present, he prepared an executive summary to present the recommendations for our first active transportation and trails plan. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Nevada. Your worship, members of council, I'm pleased to be here tonight on behalf of the project team to present our recommendations for your first active transportation and trails master plan. Of course, now my computer. Okay, so when we talk about active transportation, what do we mean? So really we're talking about anything that's really human-powered travel, whether it be walking, running, cycling, rollerblading, cross-country skiing, or using mobility devices for those that need to use those. And they're considered as pedestrians under the Highway Traffic Act. The Active Transportation and Trails Master Plan is a strategic plan, really to try and enhance active transportation in the township. And really our approach was to build upon the excellent trail facilities that already exist in the township, like the Forest Lee Trails, the LV Four Seasons Trail, the Algonquin Trail, and you've got a vast network of recreational motorized vehicle trails as well. And really, we're trying to encourage residents to choose active travel, not for all of their trip making, but for more of their trip making, whether it's one trip a day or just to get out and be active in the community. So as part of our project, we were looking at, how do we assess opportunities to encourage active transportation? We looked at, how do we serve growth areas? Are there new facilities or improved connections that we should be recommending? How do we leverage partnerships in the community to help, make this program come alive? And what kind of supporting infrastructure is needed for active transportation? And finally, how do we really enhance the safety for users? Our key deliverables under this project was to identify a future active transportation network that's comprised of off-road trails, sidewalks in built-up areas, on-road facilities such as hardened shoulders or designated bike lanes, multi-use paths, signed routes, a whole host of different on-road types of facilities. But also looking at supporting policies and programs, so like design standards for facilities that you may put in place, how you maintain some of the facilities, wayfinding and trailheads to help people navigate around the system, and education and promotion as well. And then coming out with an action plan at the end of the day with some early wins that you can implement, and some longer term projects that you will need to consider and secure funding for, perhaps, or to put aside funding to allow for future implementation. We had a 3-phase study process. Started off with a little bit of foundation building where we kind of just collected a lot of data, learned a little bit about the systems and the infrastructure you have in the township, and we identified some gaps and opportunities through that process. We also got into the plan formulation stage where we set up a framework and a vision for active transportation in the township, came up with a network plan based on that vision, and developed some policies and programs to help support the plan. And then finally, the documentation phase was putting together a reporting, putting together an implementation plan, and identifying some priorities. And throughout this project, there was engagement with the community as we went through each of the steps. We had a stakeholder advisory group. We launched a public survey to get some feedback from residents, and we had a public open house back in June. So from a policy perspective, the township has a number of policies that support active transportation. Your own official plan supports, encouraging more walking and cycling in the community. Your strategic plan also identifies some policy support for active transportation. And your Parks and Recreation Master Plan also really supports, trying to get people to walk and cycle a little bit more in the community, and obviously for the health benefits, but also for some good community benefits as well. And from a policy perspective, active transportation aligns with other policies from all the other levels of government. We looked at the federal level of government, the provincial growth plan, and the provincial policy statement, and the county of Renfrew has policies in their official plan and through their active transportation plan that really support this as part of a community building initiative. From the existing infrastructure perspective, we looked at the road network. I mean, there's a mix of township, county, and provincial roads that run through the township. Obviously the road network is much more sparse out in the west areas of the township, but much more well developed in the eastern area where the bulk of the population is. Some roads have paved shoulders, some don't. Some are in need of some tender loving care, and we tried to look at that, as well as how we sort of frame the network and the implementation opportunities. As I mentioned, you've got a really good trail network that provides a good backbone for active transportation in the community, with some of your rural trails, the Algonquin Trail, and a number of ATV routes that can be used by a number of different users in the community. When we looked at strengths and gaps, I mean, the Algonquin Trail is a jewel and an asset in the community, both within the whole county, but within the township and even within the city of Pembroke. It's well used. We actually were able to get some information on usage of some of these facilities. It's a really good backbone of a system to build a sort of an active transportation system around. Off-road recreational trails are also well used in the community. One of the things we did find was there's a lack of pedestrian facilities, particularly in growth areas. A lot of your growth, as we talked about in the Transportation Master Plan, is occurring on the periphery of Pembroke. And, there's differences in terms of, infrastructure to support walking in those environments where they might expect to be walking, to destinations within the city. Existing trails and cycling facilities are not really well connected in the system, so there's an opportunity to make some connections to provide more of a network approach to your system. And the gaps in the network can actually be a barrier to use. So if you're, especially for those that aren't comfortable, say, riding a bike on a road, if there's an infrastructure that doesn't really feel safe to you, then you may not choose to ride. But if you find infrastructure that's safe, you'll take that chance. You'll ride a bike once or twice a day or a week or a month, and that removes a barrier to usage. In terms of engagement, we had an online survey that was hosted on your website, and we collected some information from residents about their perspectives on active transportation. There was a website, your township website hosted a page for the study and provided information. We had a stakeholder advisory group and then a public open house in June of this year. In terms of the online survey, what we found is, there is really an opportunity for enhanced active transportation in the community. The residents are looking for it. They're looking for opportunities to get out and about in the community. And from the census, data, about 9% of residents travel under 2 kilometers to work or school. So there's a real opportunity. That's the target market for people to consider, not every day, but, choosing to walk one day or choosing to bike. And primarily those shorter trips are in the new development areas surrounding Pembroke. But what we found is people usually use active transportation in the community for recreation and fitness purposes as opposed to commuting. So they're not going to get out of their cars to go to work, but they will choose to use active transportation for health benefits and for just the simple enjoyment of getting out in nature. But some of the barriers that they've identified through the survey is safety. Safety is a key barrier to cycling. If people don't feel safe, they're not going to go on a road and bike, particularly if you're looking at families or other vulnerable users. Distance can be a key barrier to walking, obviously. People will have a certain threshold about how far they will walk before they will say, no, that's not for me. Conflicts with motorized vehicles on trails was identified as a concern. That's something that it will take some ongoing efforts to kind of manage. And there is a preference for separated cycling facilities, so off-road trails are definitely more preferred than, say, biking in mixed traffic. In terms of our website, there was the webpage on the Township website. We had some frequently asked questions, a bit of an overview of the study. Open house material was displayed there for people who couldn't attend the open house in person, and contact information was there for the study project team. We had a stakeholder advisor group, as I mentioned. We met twice during the study, and we'd certainly like to acknowledge and thank those that did take their time out of their busy schedules to help us. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but we've got them here on the presentation. And members of the groups came out, and we were quite pleased and really energized by the discussions that we had, because they had a lot of really good ideas, and they filled in a lot of gaps in our knowledge that we didn't know, because they live in the area, they work in the area, and they play in the area. Our first meeting was in October, and really that one, we introduced the study to them. We talked a little bit about strengths and opportunities. We did a mapping exercise to kind of identify areas that were, good areas for active transportation and areas that had some challenges. And then we presented a preliminary vision and some objectives for them to provide some feedback on. And then in April, we met back with this group again, and we kind of summarized what we'd heard from them. We gave them a proposed vision that we had developed, and we presented our draft network recommendations and policies and programs as well. At our public open house, we hosted that in June of 2024 at the Allison Fraser Recreation Center. Again, we prepared display materials to present our draft recommendations and to solicit feedback. We had 12 attendees, which was a little, sparse in terms of activity at the event, but we did also post the information online as well for those who couldn't attend. Key comments we got from that meeting were, concerns about lack of enforcement on the trails in terms of, people behaving themselves and sort of minding their etiquette on the trail system. Safety and nuisance concerns due to motorized vehicles on trails, particularly in and around the urban areas where those conflicts are bound to happen. Accommodating the needs of all users and with a focus on the needs of residents as opposed to external visitors, I guess, to the area. Strong support for paved shoulders on cycling routes to make them a little bit more comfortable, a little more safe for those that want to do cycling. There's support for the proposed trail and cycling network, and actually a few comments says, this is actually going to support cycling tourism in the area. Because when you get a network of trails, people will come to the area and they will use it for recreational trip making. So that can be a good thing, from your overall advertising and tourism perspective. And the proposed network provides good connections across the township. So we were comfortable that we think we got most of it right based on what we heard from the stakeholders. So developing the plan. We started off with a vision, and we had 3 different sort of potential vision statements. From something simple and direct to something very aspirational and very specific. We chose something what we called more detailed, which didn't tie your hands too much, but really expressed a bit of a vision that active transportation trails should provide safe mobility choices for all residents and visitors, regardless of age or ability, through a connected network of trails, on-road routes, and sidewalks that are shared by users. So that was sort of our vision moving forward to develop the plan. And then based on that, we developed 8 kind of guiding principles that we kind of kept in the back of our mind as we were building the network and coming up with the plan. So, connecting community destinations, designing for user comfort and safety, making sure that we take care to ensure we have barrier-free access to all trail solutions and all areas, trying to keep things feasible and something that, within the scope of what the township could implement over time. Promoting partnerships and stewardship. So you guys were not expecting the township to do this on their own. There's lots of great resources in the community, and a lot of communities have really tapped into partnerships to help advance their active transportation strategies. Financial sustainability, communication and promotion is a big thing. You got to tell people what you're doing and celebrate your wins and get people excited about active transportation and being, using the systems that you put in place. And then monitoring progress and adjusting as need be, because things change. And this is a snapshot in time, but opportunities will arise over time and things will change, and you want to update your plan accordingly. In terms of a network philosophy, we asked ourselves, well, how should we design a network? And what we came through is two main focus areas. Was one to connect neighborhoods within the township and activity centers to those neighborhoods. And then another one to promote recreation, which that's what the public kind of told us. That's how they use transportation or active transportation. So we really want to promote that recreational focus. So given that, we developed a network that really has a backbone from new off-road trails. And the first opportunity we identified is the CN Rail Corridor that runs east-west through the township as a strategic initiative to acquire that and promote that as an active transportation corridor. There's also a CN spur line sort of on the boundary of Pembroke that would provide a great connection over to the Algonquin Trail to provide some connectivity and have a network of off-road trails that kind of join together and people can use. If they don't want to be on the roads, they can be on the off-road trail system and then provide some strategic connections to some of your other off-road trail initiatives. So we've identified a Forest Lee Trails connector route that takes an open right-of-way and puts an active transportation corridor on that. And then the drive-in road to CN Corridor connector is a small link over in the eastern part of the township to connect drive-in road from some of your growth areas to the Algonquin Trail through a very short little connection, but it's very important to get people onto that trail system. Then we layered on some neighborhood connections. So these would be to connect some of your recreational centers to different neighborhood areas, different built-up areas in the township, through the Four Seasons Trail to Shady Nook, Highway 148, and connecting that to the Algonquin Trail, and then connecting to the Atwater subdivision. And then on top of that, we looked at connecting trails and recreation centers through another layer of on-road facilities that will help to provide some connectivity through the network and connect some of your parks and other trail areas to other infrastructure. So George Matheson Park to Algonquin Trail route, Forest Lee Trails to Algonquin Trail along Forest Lee Road, Shady Nook to the Algonquin Trail, the LV Four Seasons Trail to the CN Trail, so provide a connection to facilitate movement between those two facilities, and then some township road connections that fill out the network and provide some connectivity for loop cycling routes that a lot of cyclists actually are already using, sort of in an informal manner. And then finally, we added on a couple of county road routes, again, to provide some looping opportunities and create the opportunities for cycling tours that would take advantage of planned reconstructions of county roads, typically Round Lake Road and Doran Road filled out the network. And then on top of that, we identified some trailheads. And really, trailheads are designed as staging areas for your active transportation system. They can facilitate parking for those who drive to a trail to go and explore it. It can provide rest areas for people that use the trail. Some of them can have facilities. And your existing recreation centers provide a first good point to say, hey, you've already got these centers. By connecting them to the trails, they can serve as your initial trailheads, providing some infrastructure there. We've also identified 10 new potential trailhead locations, noted as the little N symbols on the map. And those are really designed at where the township does own some land. They're in the vicinity of a trail or a proposed trail. And really at the intersections where trail or routes come together so that people can come to that trailhead, they can navigate their system, but if they need to take a break or they can drive there and they can choose what trail to use. We also did some design concepts for trailheads, and we didn't design the actual trailhead locations, but we did come up with a couple of conceptual designs just to kind of give you a sense of, minor trailheads would have minimal infrastructure, a couple parking spaces, some basic staging, parking, rest areas, a little bit of information about the network. And then you can have major trailheads, which you could offer additional amenities such as washroom facilities or shelters. But really, you want to start small and monitor your trail use to determine the ultimate size of these trailheads, where you need to provide major trailheads and where you want to provide sort of more minor ones. In terms of the network costs, we have anticipated this would be a 20-year implementation plan. This is not a modest program. There's a fairly aggressive network here of about 123 kilometers of network to implement. It's estimated at around $11 million to implement. The largest part of that would be implementing the new multi-use trails, which would be the CN rail corridor, and bringing that up to a standard for an active transportation facility. A lot of the other costs are related to paved shoulders, and the good news is you're likely going to be spending that money anyway as you rehabilitate some of these roads. It's adding a little bit of extra pavement to a resurfacing project to provide that paved shoulder for active transportation use. So the incremental cost, if you do it with the rehabilitation work, is very, very modest. And then some of the routes are just simply signed routes, which provide connections through signing so people can navigate their way to other facilities. And there's some cost-sharing opportunities for some of the joint projects. We've identified sort of the facility owner on the project list as well. So, you know, about 8 million of these are township projects on township facilities, but there are a couple of township city potential facilities, particularly with the CN spur line. Some county projects that the county's already, you know, doing as part of their road rehabilitation work. They are providing hardened shoulders on a number of their roads, so that's not really going to be your cost. And then we've identified one project that's an MTO project, and that will require some discussions with MTO to make sure they can provide some paved shoulders on Highway 41. Policies to support the plan are just as important as the network. We've looked at the policies, and we've kind of got 4 categories of policies, recognizing that around the periphery of Pembroke, where a lot of your new growth is occurring, that's a different sort of environment than the rest of the township. But there's also things you can do in your smaller communities, sort of outside the urban area, and then in the rural areas as well, which have sort of your lowest densities, but you got your higher speed roads, and people wouldn't necessarily expect active transportation users out in those areas. And then we have some general township-wide policies as well. So in the Pembroke periphery, we are recommending that the township look to invest in sidewalks to provide the connectivity that I think your future residents are going to expect. They're going to see that infrastructure in Pembroke. They're going to want to walk to destinations in Pembroke, providing sidewalks, matching the city practice of, you know, on one side of the road by default. Two sides on busier roads would be applied to new subdivisions. And we also suggest developing a program to prioritize and complete some missing links in existing subdivisions that have developed over time. You don't have to build those sidewalks right away, but look at where it makes the most sense to provide some sidewalks. That will get people, walking to school, for example, walking to other destinations, and provide them a safe environment to do that, where you've got higher volumes on some of the roads. Building walkways into your subdivision plans. We should have walkway connections in new subdivisions built in as part of the development approval process, so that land is reserved, that you can come in and put that walkway, or have the developer build the walkway to connect the subdivision to a commercial area or out to one of your trails. Non-residential uses should have a pedestrian path of travel from the township right away into the front door of the development, so that people that choose to walk aren't navigating through a busy parking lot trying to find their way to the front door of a commercial development. Looking at pedestrian trail crossings by marking crosswalks by default where pedestrians have the right of way, so at a stop sign or at a traffic signal, but also providing pedestrian crossovers, we call them PXOs, for key crossings where you need to provide that right-of-way control for pedestrians. In urban areas, that's a common approach used now to provide that right-of-way. Trail etiquette, looking at clear information about the types of motorized vehicles that would be allowed in the urban areas on trails. If that continues, even establishing speed limits for motorized vehicles, and establishing sort of the right-of-way hierarchy with pedestrians, non-motorized vehicles, and motorized vehicles sort of at the bottom of the pyramid. In small communities and more rural areas, sidewalks aren't going to be as big a concern. You may want to consider them in communities that have about 30 or so homes. Again, you would prioritize roads with higher volumes, which represent a benefit to safety for people that are walking instead of them walking on the road. You also would prioritize them near amenities, which might create some pedestrian demand. And certainly incorporating community input into that to get their feedback as you go through the sort of the prioritization process. And with new developments, you should be trying to provide those sidewalks in those sort of new development areas in in smaller communities. Trail crossings, there's a number of existing trail crossings on your roadway system with the Algonquin Trail, and even, you know, with the proposed new CN trail, that you really need to pay attention to the warning signage for crossings. There's not a lot of warning signs on a lot of the trail crossings now. And that can be a bit of a shock to people when they're driving along on the road and all of a sudden see someone trying to use a trail crossing when you don't really perceive that trail crossing ahead of you. Warning signs can help. We also recommend looking at realigning some of those trail crossings to 90 degrees to promote visibility. So when you're on the trail, you're not craning your neck to look to see if a car is coming. It just makes it a little safer for everyone. And also to restrict on-road parking near those trail crossings. So in some ways, the trailheads will address that in some areas, but you can only provide so many trailheads. But restricting parking on your trail crossings at least allows people approaching and people using the trail to see one another. If there's parked cars in the way, that can be a recipe for something awful to happen. In terms of general policy and program recommendations, we do recommend you look at marketing and outreach for your active transportation system. Simple thing, creating an active transportation map. Tell people what you've got, where it is, and promote it on your trail system as well. So people that are on the trails can see what other facilities are there, what destinations they can reach using your active transportation infrastructure. Outreach programs through schools, tourism, ATV clubs, cycling groups, fitness groups, those are all good ways to generate some interest and some excitement about active transportation. And when you launch new facilities, you have to celebrate your successes. Proactively providing information on existing and new facilities to new residents, so even handing out handouts in new subdivisions when people move in to say, you know, here's the trail facilities in your neighborhood. Community rides, walks, and other events, things like a bike month, family bike days, are all ways to get people interested in active transportation in a very subtle way and introduce them to some of the infrastructure to maybe get them a little more comfortable with using it on their own. Wayfinding is important in active transportation system. Just like, you know, we all use our GPS to get where we're going in our cars, we all rely on the road signs. Well, trail users need guide signs too. We suggest developing a brand to help brand your system. You've already done it with your recreation centers. You've got signs out there that kind of a branded logo that shows you this is a Laurentian Valley Recreation Center. Something similar for your trails would help people recognize that this is a Laurentian Valley trail. It's part of a network, and I know I'm still on the network, and I know what to expect as I move through the network. So branding is helpful for wayfinding. Providing signs at trailheads and along routes, and then having some signing for navigation, trail rules, etiquette, information. And this is an opportunity to bring sponsorships in. So on trail signage, you can get sponsors that might want to advertise on the maps or on the trail signage, and that helps defer some of the costs. But it also gives them a benefit to say, hey, I'm on this network. You can come visit me, you know, while you're enjoying your active transportation. In terms of implementation, there's a few steps we're recommending. Incorporating your active transportation network and policies into your official plan would be a good step. A lot of communities are putting a schedule in their official plan to designate the routes to help protect them and to kind of express that this is your objective of how you want your transportation system to work, just like you do with your road system. Also do it with your active transportation system. Consider it in planning application process. So, you know, figure out how a new development is going to accommodate active transportation, just like you make them do a traffic study, you know, have them think about how they're going to facilitate walking and cycling. Secondary plans is a good way to do that for larger development areas where you may want to map out, you know, how you're going to connect people to destinations through walking and cycling in a larger development area. And then you can protect corridors. By establishing those plans up front, you can protect those corridors through the development process so that they're available when you're ready to put some infrastructure there. Bike parking requirements in new developments is something that we are suggesting you incorporate into your official plan. One of the barriers that people told us about is they're worried about having their bike stolen. There's not a secure place to lock your bike up, and then they don't ride. So simple thing like providing secure bike racks for all multi-unit residential and non-residential units is a small thing to do, but it can actually encourage some use. And then integrate all this into your township processes. So whether not only through new development, but also when you undertake an infrastructure project, or looking at new roadways. You know, how can you support active transportation? It may vary by roadway, it may just be a paved shoulder for a lot of it, but that's the time to actually look at using this plan to help you guide your investment decisions moving forward. And providing bike parking at township facilities. So there's a quick win, easy win that, you know, you've already got your rec centers out there, provide some bike parking there to allow for people to cycle to those facilities. Coordination and partnerships, obviously there's some cross-boundary coordination required, Pembroke, Petawawa, and with the county, to make sure that all these infrastructure recommendations can come to fruition and they're integrated with the plans of other jurisdictions. But also exploring partnerships and sponsorships in a broader way, partnering to look at the CN rail corridor, whether it's the township, the city, the county, or even ATV and snowmobile clubs, trying to secure ownership of that corridor to allow for use, and partnerships could be part of that. Again, for trailheads, you can look at sponsorships to help raise funding for some of the trailheads, and you could name them or brand them. Shared maintenance with other township users, you know, shared services for mapping and creating a map that, you know, sponsors may put their ad on the map, and that helps pay for some of those costs. Partnering with tourism agencies for cross promotion, those are also good opportunities to get the word out, and we have an example here where Shimano partnered with the county and city of Peterborough to put signage along all their bicycle routes, and that was a sponsorship opportunity that didn't cost the city anything, but now they've got signing on all their routes around the county of Peterborough. In terms of design standards for on-road facilities, there's two sort of what we call the Bibles for design standards. The Ontario Traffic Manual Book 18 covers sort of cycling facilities, and that's sort of the guidelines that govern, you know, what you should be providing for different types of situations. And then the Transportation Association of Canada Design Guide as well, which your staff already use as they look at, you know, the road reconstruction and design guides for that. Paved shoulders can vary in width. For lower volume roads, you can do a paved shoulder less than 1.2 meters in width. That's sort of the minimum for a designated bike facility. If you're under that, you should just use share the road signing to at least let people know that, you know, cyclists may be on the road, and to share that space. But you wouldn't designate that as a bike lane. Over 1.2 meters wide on a shoulder, you can designate that as a bike lane, and that sort of meets the minimum guidelines. For high volume roads like Highway 148, a 2 to 3 meter wide paved shoulder with sometimes a painted buffer area, just because of the high speeds, is something that would be recommended for that type of facility. And we've already given those recommendations to MTO as part of the 148 construction. For trails, standards typically range between 3 and 4.5 meters in width. Preferred for a trail, you try and keep your grades under 5% to make sure that they're accessible for all users. Providing a hard surface, either stone dust or asphalt would be preferred, but, you know, asphalt's pretty penny for some trails, so you might just prioritize that in urban areas or areas where you might be concerned about dust causing a nuisance. So you might want to look at paving certain trails where you're in proximity to residential land uses. Accessible trails and access paths to get to the trails are just as important. So some of the trails may be at a different elevation than the road, or you've got bridges, so making sure that it's accessible to get up to the trail. And then using visible gates for access control to make sure you don't get unwanted motorized vehicles on your trails, like cars and half tons and things like that. Implementation can happen in stages. You know, no one expects this to happen overnight. Our first suggestion is to really work towards acquiring the CN rail corridor, because that will be the backbone of a system. And it will position you for future funding programs as well. So and we all know there's elections coming up, and, you know, as elections come up, infrastructure programs tend to come along with announcements and funding programs. So those are opportunities that now you have a plan. You can say, this is our top priority. We want to seek funding for that plan. So having the plan will assist you in seeking funding for those types of programs when they come. Coordinating with your road resurfacing program is sort of a way to minimize costs and get your network implemented sooner. And I know the Township staff are looking at your road rehabilitation program now to help prioritize where they're going to do resurfacing. So coordinating this with this plan will certainly help. And of course with the county road program as well. Funding, there's a series of funding opportunities. I'm not going to allude that there's lots of funding out there for active transportation. A lot of it does fall on either development charges or cost sharing agreements or through the property tax base. One thing we would suggest, we've seen done in a few other communities, is develop an active transportation or trails reserve fund that you might contribute a little bit to on an annual basis to get a pool of money that can help you either help to get a project going or off the ground, or to help fund some of your other programs that you would have a pot of money set aside that you can use to make strategic investments in your system. With that, I thank you for your time and your patience, and would certainly welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Very detailed, very informative, certainly an important tool for the future of our township. So I thank you for that. Questions from council, comments? Brian?
You talked a lot about the East End development happening in the East End. Did you have any recommendations on, there's a number of developments there, on how best those active transportation links should run through that? Should that be something that we specify up front, or do we just leave it up to them to?
Through your worship, we didn't design the links in those areas, but we were certainly cognizant that you've got a lot of planning applications and some that are sort of down the road that we know are going to come forward at some point. The recommendation we made was really to take a secondary plan approach to some of those larger parcels of land that are probably going to develop in a series of phases. And what the secondary plan can help do is it lays out the lot fabric for the developers and lays out the servicing areas so you know where stormwater, but you can also lay out your active transportation facilities, and you can establish your road right-of-way widths to make sure that you've got the space to put facilities in when you're ready to, or have the developers do that. But that would be the time to do that, is through that secondary plan process, to try and particularly where you're trying to secure new corridors. We've suggested, in the details of our report, we've suggested strategies like, providing walkway corridors that link to stormwater facilities, so those natural areas can become part of a little localized trail, and then you provide a connection out to the main road or out to a neighboring trail, so you've got connectivity into the subdivision. That's going to depend a little bit on back and forth with the developers, so that's where we think the secondary plan process may be a good way to achieve those connections.
Okay. Everybody else? If not, thank you very much, Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
Have a safe drive home.
Yeah, okay, well, sure, yeah, well, we can. Yeah, okay, sure, okay.
So we're kind of gonna, I know we have a pretty busy schedule tonight. We have a couple of staff members that I'm sure they have a lot of other things to get done. So I'm just gonna jump ahead before we get into community development, recreation, and culture to our fire chief.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks again. So I know I'm jumping around, but we'll save these guys some time. So we do have a fire report in the package. Welcome, Chief.
Hello.
I guess first of all, does anybody have any questions or comments on the monthly report that Tim's provided? Or anything, Tim, you want to add to that?
Not really. There's enough on there. No, it just continues on and on. We had another one Sunday night. We lost a barn through the lightning, and we spent half the day putting it out again today because all the hay was still burning. And it's just we had another house structure on Friday night. or Thursday night, last Thursday, like, I've never seen a year like it. It just keeps going on. And I mean, I've been in this game a couple of years, and it's just, the calls come in now, and when they come in, you don't get the little ones anymore. Everything seems to be a structure fire, you know, so it's, like, it's gotta slow down sooner or later. You know, like,
Well, our compliments to your staff, Tim. I know they're doing a great job, but their dedication is very much appreciated. Brian?
Do we have any updates on corner of Drive-In Road and Pembroke Street?
that's, probably.
Yeah, I guess I can comment on that. We've gone through the posting of it, now we're just creating a spec, because we have to unfortunately tender it, and because there's a possible asbestos, we gotta monitor it, so the document is here, it'll be out by the end of the week for pricing, and I would hope, again, by the end of October, that it's fairly removed, if not very shortly thereafter, so. We've been getting a few calls, and certainly we understand kind of the eyesore it is, and these things are never easy, because we're taking it away from, we're gonna be doing the work for the owner and then posting it on a scenario where we can post it on the taxes, and we'll collect at a later date. He's been, I guess, from this point, the insurance has not come through, or I don't know the whole deal, but anyway, it doesn't matter to us. We're proceeding onwards.
So if there is asbestos concerns, are there legitimate concerns with the neighbors downstream with the runoff from all the rains we've been having and everything else? And
Well, I guess it's really, the concern we have is in the disposal part. It creates a whole other dynamic for disposal, because it has to be separated and everything else, so, yeah, I honestly don't know about that part. The insurance will have to remediate when they do come in, I guess, but at this point, we just need to remove the building.
Okay. Anything else fire-related for Tim?
No, I don't think so at the moment.
Okay.
No, we're all good.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And we'll jump down to Public Works. Brad, I take it you're for water, right? Evening, Brad.
Screebers. I'll take this desk down any minute. All right, so thank you, Worship Members Council. So this is a third quarter report for the water. Just going into the analysis, E. coli, we did 30 samples in this quarter. No adverse with that or total coliforms. The HBCs, we did 10 tests, and again, within the limits. Residual chlorine, again, within the limits. The THAs, they were within the limits of, and also the HAAs. So all the tests came back positive, and no adverse results there. In the third quarter of 2024, municipality paid Caducean Laboratories $1,876.36 for the testing of our water. The complaints, we spoke about this in the second quarter on Hamilton Street West. We did a continuation of brown water in that area. It is the end of the line on that section, so we just implemented a weekly flushing regime and just flush the line every week just to get rid of the brown water, and we haven't had any complaints since, so seems to be working. Staffing hasn't changed. In the maintenance section, there were 87 locate requests completed in the third quarter, of which 49 were identified water lines to be marked. The water service operators commissioned and finalized the water lines on Roy Street construction projects, so they are now running off the new water lines that were installed. And then there was 2 requests to have the water shutoffs completed. Again, on the Roy Street West project, that's been finalized, the new water main. And then just in summary, in the third quarter of 2024, the waterworks purchased 12,732,786 gallons of water from the city of Pembroke, distributed to homes and businesses, and there was no adverse water quality events in the third quarter.
Great. Thank you very much, Brad. Brian?
just with regards to the complaint in the brown water,
Yeah.
is that something new, or have we been doing this?
No. We do a bi-weekly, a bi-yearly flush of the water lines. That area in particular is old cast pipe still. So we only have a small amount of cast pipes left in the township. So once that's all taken out and put to plastic, this should be minimized, the brown waters. But it's usually on your dead end lines where you get the brown water, because it sits there and stagnates. You know what I mean? Chlorine levels are still there, so there's no health issues with it. It's just the pipes are like the old cast iron, so you get crustaceans on the inside, and it just causes a discoloration of the water.
Yeah, I just didn't know whether there was a more permanent fix other than continuing every.
Plastic pipes will help. Yeah.
Okay, nothing else? Brad, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Can we just circle back to that motion for the active transportation?
Yes, yeah, that's where we're going now.
Okay.
So a motion for the active transportation trails plan, Keith and Jennifer?
Moved by Watt, second by Councillor Gauthier, that the council accept the report as information and direct Paradigm Consulting, Inc. to finalize the Laurentian Valley Active Transportation and Trails Plan for the adoption and subsequent meeting of council.
All in favor? Okay. And next item is Laurentian Valley Seasons Trail Committee 2024 Halloween at the Trail Event Sponsorship Request. Nevada.
I just want to mention about the executive summary. If you guys have any concerns, or questions, just, you can email me and I'll go back with the consultants. The final report is going to be generated, and I hope to bring it to the next committee meeting. And it's going to be pretty much what you've got in the executive summary. So if now there is something that you have a concern about, or you'd like to see something different in the plan, or you don't agree with something, just bring it to my attention in the next couple weeks, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we got a request from the Four Seasons Trail Committee to sponsor their Halloween at the Trail event again. We did sponsor them last year in the amount of $1,800. This year, they're requesting $1,500, and it's again to help cover the costs of the magician, Stephen Anthony. He does a live performance there throughout the nights, and he has a whole little station set up. The reason why my motion isn't very, I don't have like a distinct recommendation, is because my budget is completely depleted. I only have just over $100 left. So we would need your permission to go, well, it'd be whatever you guys decide, or if you wanted to go over budget or financial implications. The treasurer can talk more about that, but in terms of what I can do, I only have $163 or whatever it is left in my budget.
Okay, Sean, do you want to comment? I know your notes are there, so.
The bottom, I think.
I really don't have a comment other than what's there. I mean, I think you're gonna see the second paragraph. You're gonna see that language in recommendations coming forward, just typically where we're at this part of the year. I think even in another report tonight, and I know there's another report coming next week with that language similar. So it's pretty immaterial in the whole grand scheme of things, but it is just saying that if we were in a deficit position, this would add to it, and if we're in a surplus position, this takes away from that surplus position. So I really have nothing else to add.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Questions, comments? Keith?
Just a comment that, like other groups, I guess it should either be in the recreation budget on an annual basis if it's going to become an annual item, or have the request in much earlier in the year than at the last minute.
Okay. Brian?
I have two questions. First of all, if they're in need of money, why aren't they charging admission? The value that it presents is a $15 to $25 value that we're now going back to the ratepayers of Laurentian Valley Township to subsidize, when the users could be subsidizing it, or the city of Pembroke always says we need to pay our share. Well, they should maybe be the ones coughing up for this amount to be paying at least a part of it. On the fall flavors thing, I had mentioned, you know, we were sponsoring their cultural event, and were they approached to sponsor fall flavors, or did they? With
Who's they?
Pembroke, City of Pembroke?
I don't know.
I just
can't
think that
answer
if we charged even a nominal fee for this event, we would cover these costs and a ton of other costs on the trail, and we could also partner with a bunch of different charities that would benefit from it and are in dire need of the funds, and would also give you a supply of volunteers and people excited to be part of it because they're doing something for the greater community as large. I don't think that the ratepayers of the township should be subsidizing this more. It should be the users that are using and getting the benefit from it.
Okay. Anybody else? Does somebody want to make a motion? I guess not. Okay. So
Okay.
there'll be no money.
Okay.
Okay, move on to volunteer appreciation holiday party.
Okay, so last year, council had asked me to find out if the volunteers are happy with the current format. So I did put out a poll, a little survey that we prepared on Zen City, and I emailed it to all the groups and also offered paper copies to some. And basically, I got 22 people that responded. They didn't answer every single question, so you'll see like in the answers, some questions only have 14 answers, 13, but altogether 22 took the time to answer the survey. When I talked to the different volunteer groups, the overall impression is everybody is happy with the format. One thing that stuck out to me is perhaps the idea of maybe moving it to one of the rec centers. It might cut down on some of the costs to clean up the public works garage and to dress it up. There is a cost to that, where if we had it at a rec center, it would, we can use the center at no cost. So it'd be just the decorations and the food. So it would cut down on cost a little bit. So.
Yep. I think one of the reasons why we did it here was so that none of the volunteers had to work at the party. I think that was, yeah, and show off the new garage, absolutely. But, you know, we can talk about it. Council wants to put all the clubs in a hat, names in a hat and pick one, or do you want to stay where it is? I guess, first of all, decide on, are we going to have the same format? Then we can decide on where it's going to be. I know it, every time I've been here, since it's been in the garage, people just think it's great. And the responses are showing that, right? Mm-hmm. So I would like to see it stay the way it is. But we'll take your comments. Brian?
What kind of savings do you think we would see by moving it?
I think to rent, like, the decorations is around $2,000, more or less. So I could buy decorations. I haven't priced that out. Maybe we would save $1,500 by moving it to a rec center.
Okay. Keith?
I was just going to say that the format we had, I thought, was very appropriate, and it seemed to be enjoyed by everybody who attended, including the councillors. So I think that part of it is good. And perhaps if we can save some dollars, it might be a real good way to do it.
You mean to move it to a
To
hall?
move it to a hall.
Jennifer?
This is your recommendation, right? No one has come in the survey and said, hey, why don't you move it to Shady Nook, or why don't you share?
No, I didn't make a recommendation. That was just the one thing that stood out to me.
Just because I remember that, and it was so that all the volunteers did not have to volunteer that day. I think
Okay.
that's why we chose to have it here, just so they didn't have to do anything. It was their day, kind of.
Patty?
If I remember correctly, Nevada, did somebody not bring that forward at our joint committee meeting? I thought I'd written it down somewhere.
To have
that
it, well,
somebody-
it was
one of
someone's,
It had been brought up by one of the members at the meeting.
It was, that was one of the main comments that came back out of the survey, that perhaps moving it to one of the rec centers. That's just the feedback from the survey.
Did I see that there is another joint rec coming up, or we already had it?
We just had it, yeah, in September.
Well, does council want to ask Nevada to check around and see which group would like to host it?
Well, it would be
Is that-
just having like, they really wouldn't have to work at it, just be having the bar service there, a couple people running the bar, really. Yeah, a couple of volunteers, yeah.
What's that, Patty?
We could get other volunteers, not necessarily the volunteers that are there. Like, I know with our group, we have got access to a couple of people that are not regular volunteers that probably could run the bar that evening.
Okay.
Yeah, the group wouldn't have to do anything. We would basically just be like renting this facility like anyone else, and we'd
Okay.
be the one hosting it and decorating it and getting it ready. So
Okay.
it'd just be having the bar service would be the one thing.
Patty?
I personally think it would be a good idea, seeing as we're running into issues, we're getting so close to the end of budget, and if it's a way that we can save a few dollars, I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay, so is that the general consensus of council? That do we leave it with Nevada then to discuss it with the rec centers and I guess availability as well, right?
Yeah, so I did reach out to Laura a while ago, but I'll reach out again. I don't know, well, and if we're doing it on a Thursday evening, both facilities will probably be available. Oh, that's right. That's why I went to the Shady Nook, yeah. So yeah, I'll reach out and see what
Okay.
dates are available.
All right, good, thank you. Do I need a motion on anything?
No, I don't think so.
Distraction?
No, we're good.
Okay. So you also have your report? Okay.
My monthly report. I just wanted to highlight a few things that are happening and coming up. So I'd like to just inform you that all of the park signs have been installed and they look really good. I don't know if you've had a chance to go out and look at them in person. The picture is nice, but when you show up in front of them, they're quite nice, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. The Fall Flavors event, I just wanted to say, this was the first year that Township staff took more of a role in the planning of this event. So I was able to take part in pretty much the full event and stay there and see how the whole thing unfolds. And I have to say that that group has that event down to a science. It runs so smoothly. And anyway, Elizabeth is quite amazing at running events. So I ended up purchasing a little clicker this year to count the people coming in, and by 4 p.m. we had just over 1,000 people that have gone through. So, and then the event did go till 9 o'clock, so I anticipate at least a few more hundred had gone through, so it was a really successful event. I'd also like to talk about the grand opening of Elgin Street Park. So officially now it's open to the public. We had the grand opening at the end of September. I just want to share that that park was funded in part by the Canadian Revitalization Community Fund. And yeah, so we also had invited the Willow Ridge Committee. So that was the group of neighborhood volunteers that rallied for this park. And we invited Mr. LaPointe and his family because he was the one that provided the land for the park. So we also installed a memorial stone dedicating the playground to the memory of his late son, Zachary LaPointe. I'd also like to just mention that another grant that we received is funding the Fit and Feisty Coffee and Culture Connect. The grant, the New Horizons Seniors Program grant, is funding 12 of their coffee connects in the next year. So they've already had 3. I went to the third one. They had over 100 people in there, a lot of new people coming out. Their next event is tomorrow. It's called Quebec, Our Neighbor Across the River, and it's Brian Adam that's going to be doing a presentation about the what is it called? Oh, it escapes me. The transit that used to go across the river. What is No, the boat. What is it called? The ferry. Sorry, it escaped my head. So he's going to do a small presentation on that. So they anticipate a lot of people coming out for that one. And then there's a couple coming up at Christmas and one other one where they're going to move it to Shady Nook because they do anticipate over capacity because they're getting very close to Alice. So yeah, so the funding is really expanding that program and the community is responding. And finally, I'd like to mention, a couple more things. So Benita from Pleasant View Park Committee approached the township asking if we would partner with them to help them run a little party at their park celebrating the 40 years of Pleasant View Park. She also mentioned that it was also 40 years of Children's Gardens, so we decided to partner with that organization. I believe that it's going to bring out more kids because she's got about 120 kids that are part of the Children's Garden Nursery. And they're able to also bring to the table some funding, some volunteers. They're going to take care of all the games. So I think it's a great partnership that'll bring out a lot of new faces to the park, and hopefully we can see some of you guys out. It'll be on Sunday, October 20th from noon to 3. And we've got all kinds of things, bouncy castles. It's a big kids event, face painting, spooky music. We're going to have a giant birthday cake, popcorn station. Benita's got all kinds of different ideas for the kids, so it's going to be a really nice afternoon. And it'll be a Halloween-themed event, so everyone's encouraged to come in a costume. And finally, the Halloween at the Trail event is coming up the last 2 weekends in October, and they are looking for volunteers to help with all kinds of different things, scare actors, setting up, taking down, parking, behind the scenes. So if you know of anybody or if you are interested, please reach out to the group at Laurentian Valley Trail at gmail.com. And that's all I'd like to share tonight.
Well, that's enough. Lots going on in Laurentian Valley.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's great to see all the different events that have happened and coming forward. It just shows how volunteer funded we are in Laurentian Valley and how well it's done. And Nevada, obviously, you've had a part to do in each one, so good job.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, please.
Good evening, Council. So as you can see from my report, there's quite a bit going on here in the month of September. And I won't go through all of it, but there's a couple things or two things really that I really wanted to highlight that I thought were extra special about this month. One being the Seniors Active Living application. In the report, I did attach all the letters of support. I wanted to share that with council so that you could see how excited the community is and how impacted the community is by what Fit and Feisty is doing and what it means to them, and what a difference that they're making. This was quite a bit of moving parts to write this grant, get everybody on board, make sure that we had everything in place and lined up, but hopefully in the long run it'll work out that we get this grant and that this group can focus less on worrying about the administrative side and focus more about being fit and feisty. But I just wanted to share that with you because I was very touched by that. I thought that was really special, what people had reached out from all different walks of life, and that this group is making a difference. The other second thing, like I said, I'm not going to go through everything, but that I want to highlight was the Taste of the Valley application. So you can see here I got a little excited with the Canva here, but we got lots of exciting drawings about what I think this event can be. It's got a ton of potential. So I really hope that we get it because it can bring in thousands of people to the area. And so I really hope that we're able to do that. But I did submit that application for the Taste of the Valley. Now, there are other things on here that I'd be open to council asking any questions or comments about, and I'll turn it over to you if you have any comments or questions.
Council have any? Oh, Keith and then Betty.
Just a quick comment on the Taste of the Valley. I know that the ones that have been run in other municipalities have really drew great crowds. The one in Cobden is another one that's doing really well. Killaloo had their first one this year, and, they're doing well. So hopefully, with our proximity in our area, you'll do well, very well.
Thank you.
Betty?
Not really so much a question, but a comment. I just want to give kudos to Chris. He's doing an amazing job at everything he's doing, and all the new ideas he's bringing forth is just phenomenal, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, I guess that's it for you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Subcommittees, Friends of the Disabled.
We continue to grow again for the request for the new bus, and I just saw a post actually today that they're trying to expand the hours again because the demand is so high. We have a meeting on Thursday night, so I'll be able to provide more information next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Shady Nook?
Shady Nook, the minutes are there. I think they're maybe from a month earlier. It's not the updated ones, but we did meet last night. We had a 2-hour marathon meeting last night. The big issue is, at this point, there are only 44 kids registered for hockey. And so unless that pretty much doubles by Friday, it makes it impossible because we rely on purchasing ice from Beachburg and Petawawa and other places. It's one thing if you've got 24 kids on the ice, but if you've got 8 on the ice, it just doesn't make it feasible. So it may end up, so we were looking at other alternatives to be able to give these kids some sort of hockey experience, and it may end up being designated age categories on different nights for pickup, just on that basis. And so we'll see on Friday if numbers change. If not, it'll be there will be ice at Shady Nook, and there will be hockey. It just will not be on an organized basis going forward with the numbers that we're seeing now.
Does the group have any idea why it's so low?
There's been 2 other similar leagues open up, both that have artificial ice indoors, so they can offer a consistent product, where with the winter the last couple of years, the way it's been, there's been no guarantees. So, if you want to put a roof over the rink in Shady Nook, we could get those numbers back, but without that, it's hard to compete with other ice surfaces.
Right. Anything else for Brian? Okay, thank you. Forest Lee?
Nothing to report.
Okay, Pleasant View? Oh, I'm sorry, Allison Fraser.
We also had our meeting last night. We went over fall flavors. We got, looking at our budgets, got our numbers together that we're going to submit to Nevada shortly. And we set our date for the Winter Carnival of January the 17th to the 25th. And we're going to have a kids' Christmas party sponsored by Allison Fraser Minor Sports on Sunday, December the 8th. So that's all coming down in the next little while.
Certainly hats off to all the volunteers at Allison Fraser for the show they put on. As Nevada mentioned earlier, is very well done and very well organized. So just thank you from council for that. We'll stay with you, Betty, on Pleasant View.
Well, I had my poster out. Nevada stole my thunder. So much for that idea. But no, we haven't had a meeting, but as Nevada mentioned, they do have a big celebration coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I know Benita is over the moon excited that they're finally being able to put on an event there again, so.
Good. Stafford.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Four Seasons Trail, well, we all know Halloween's coming up, and volunteers are working hard getting it ready. Hope to see everybody out. Fit and Feisty.
An incredible, energetic group with that Fit and Feisty. Another meeting coming up tomorrow with the executive, and I guess the last couple activities have been, one was a e-bike ride down through Ottawa and into the Gatineau Hills. There's another local one that they do weekly, maybe through to Petawawa or whatever, but they certainly are engaged and.
Yeah, they're quite the group. Every event you go to is jam-packed. Okay, we'll move on to Pembroke Canary Airport.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, emergency management, Laurie's not here. We're down to business, and Sean.
Okay, thank you. So the first report that I have is kind of a tidy up of a policy that we've had in place for a little while, but it's around issuing charitable donation receipts. So we're just trying to clean up the language and clean up the procedure a little bit. The main focus is if we receive donations for something that's not a direct municipal program, per our policy and per CRA regulations, we can't write a charitable donation receipt. However, if we received a general donation that had no strings attached to it from the donor, because that's what a true donation would be, then council can make a decision on where to redirect those funds to. So what we've attempted to do here is, and the form will likely change if we go to the last, like this form will a little bit further. We'll have to work with the form a little bit, but basically what we're doing here is we're getting the proper information from the donor, and then if it's for a general donation, let's say, and they say at the bottom kind of, if your contribution is not intended for a specific township program, we'll record that in general revenue, which we have to do. I will report, or the treasurer will report annually to council on the contributions received, and then the council at that point may direct us to put those funds elsewhere. And then please provide services that are important to you as the donor, not necessarily that the funds will go there, but if you provide us where it's important to you, we can maybe put them that way. That, in my opinion, gets us in compliance with what we need to be in to administer the donation. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
No, pretty straightforward. Al?
Not a question, just a comment, and thanks, Sean, for doing that, because I know it kind of came to light through the airport, and I think it really does clean it up and makes it. I don't think any of us want somebody to give a charitable donation and then the CRA come back a year or two later and say, yeah, you know what, this isn't eligible. So this really does clear it up and really makes it that the CRA won't come back and be able to do that. So it's protecting our ass, I guess.
Okay, got a motion?
Yes, sir.
Alan and Betty?
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor King, that the Corporate Services and Protection Committee recommends to council to amend policy FIN 06 charitable donations receipt policy and to rename it FIN 20 charitable donations receipts policy.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, Sean, section 357 tax applications.
Okay, thank you. So this report, so we've typically try to bring this report around this time of year. Any section 357 applications that the township would have received throughout the year, technically they've got to come to council for your approval before we administer the write-off. So the implication on the township is $14,684 and 34 cents. And you can see a bit further down in the attachment what they really pertain to. There's one roll number that is no longer assessed as commercial or is no longer a commercial use. And then there's a few that had fires and or demolitions. So the cost, the total cost, sorry, all three levels of government or two levels of government plus the education board is $14,684. Our portion is $5,418.60, and then the county and education portions will recover through our Q4 levy. So this just basically needs formal approval. If you weren't to approve it, the homeowners could appeal and it could go further. I have no issues with these to approve, for my professional opinion.
So Sean, in the case of a fire on a lot, so now the house is gone, does the municipality wait so long until is this what this is, and not paying as much tax anymore?
So what it is, yeah, so if you had a fire or a flood or something, and your unit was deemed unusable or
or you had a demolition, it is up to the homeowner to apply for a Section 357 application. And then as of the date of that, whatever happened, you would cease to pay that value or tax on that value of whatever the structure was. And then if you were to rebuild, let's say that's a full year later, well then as of that date that you rebuilt on, you would go back to paying the full, whatever impact assessed. And maybe Reeve Watt has anything to add on that as his impact experience, that'd be great, but that's the way I understand it.
No, thank you very much. I was just curious. I got a motion.
Yes.
Keith and Wendy.
Moved by Reeve Watt, second by Councillor Hewitt, that the Corporate Services and Protection Committee recommends to council to authorize the treasurer through section 357 and 358 of the Municipal Act 2001 process the cancellation, reduction, and refunds of property taxes for certain property in an amount of $14,684.34.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, write off uncollectible taxes.
Okay, so this is a little bit different. This is a property that that we have that has accumulated quite substantial property taxes. There has been an attempt at a tax sale in the past that was failed. We have spoken with the township solicitor on how we can maybe proceed, and the ideal end game on this would be that at some point we would be able to have a tax sale and have a successful one where somebody purchases the property and moves on, and we then begin to tax and collect our property taxes. But where the property is at, it's not very attractive for a potential purchaser given the property tax owing. So we would need, or what a recommendation that we could do is to write down property taxes, then begin to go through the tax sale process. It's a bit more attractive to a potential purchaser. This particular property has had a history with some liens from the federal and provincial government. Our solicitor was successful in getting all but basically one lien lifted. The last remaining lien from the provincial government, they will lift it, but as long as there's an undertaking that if we were to sell the property, if and when we sell it to somebody else, that we would pay the provincial government $5,000. So this is the first step in this process, is to write down the property taxes to a value that we think is fair in the event to try to work through the property tax sale. So with that, I'll turn it back.
Sean, we have a budget amount for uncollectible taxes?
Yeah, so every year at year end, there's a few properties, this was one of them, that we deemed as high risk. And so we have expensed in fiscal years previous to now a percentage amount that we then put in, we call it allowance for uncollectible, allowance for doubtful accounts. It's similar in the sense of a reserve almost. And so we will use that to cover this write-off. So it doesn't have a direct hit to our budget this fiscal year. We've taken that direct hit in previous fiscal years in preparation of this.
Okay, perfect.
And maybe just to add, there is some recovery, small amounts of recovery from the county in the education taxes we'll get back, which Sean, treasurer, has put in his report.
Motion?
Yep.
Brian and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Hughley, second by Councillor Gauthier, that the Corporate Services and Protection Committee recommends to council to authorize the treasurer through section 354 of the Municipal Act 2001 process the write-off of taxes and interest of the property described as 4766-074-055-14300 in the amount of $146,922.93.
All in favor? Carried. Next one is your favorite, Sean?
Yeah, so this is just, everyone has kind of seen this timeline, but I thought we'd just bring a quick report, and it's a bit timely given the news that we received near the end of last week, but just reiterating here of what the budget is going to entail. When our levy this year, what we raised from taxation is just over $6.8 million, so a 1% increase or decrease equates to about $68,000. We do have coming up the CPI index will be released. I think it's by the end of the week or early next week, possibly. where that's really my starting point, because then I can kind of, the first big step for me personally is then our wage grid and whatnot. So we'll bring a report back throughout the process on what that increase, the CPI increase is, and then our policy. We have received our OMPF funding, we should be receiving our OMPF funding in November. Our OCIF, so Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund grant. This is to go directly towards the funding of infrastructure. We've had a 15% confirmed, a 15% decrease, so that is almost 1% of our tax levy there. That formula has changed. Last year, we saw an increase of about 10%. We're down 15% this year. That level of 380,463 is very similar, as you can see, to the funding we got in 2022. So we've kind of gone up, and now we're back down to that level. So yes, it is a cut from last year, but it's in the realm of where we were. But we have to, we are in the process of updating our asset management plan, which updates our current replacement values. You'll hear CRV. That is a big driver of the asset management, or of the OCIF grant funding. We aren't the only ones that have received these cuts. I believe most municipalities around us, one has received an increase of 15%, but a lot of places are seeing decreases. So we just have to work through that, and we may have to dive into that formula a little bit further. I have there our CCBF, Canada Community Building Fund. That's formerly the gas tax funding. And then I have a timeline here. So November 5th, we would bring the user fees. And then November 19th is going to be a big day, heavy lifting day. That's where we will try to attempt to go through most, or if not all, of our budget. And then if we need a second meeting, it'd be on the 26th at night. So just to clarify, November 19th, we'd have the special meeting from 12 to 4:30. A break for dinner, and then a regular council meeting to follow. And then, as you'll see now, the ideal is that we get the budget passed by December 17th. That would be best case scenario. And then just, I did speak to a few people, but we have received our Ontario, or our OPP our OPP invoice for next year, and it has gone up substantially. So 200 in the realm of $250,000. So that on top of our OCIF comes out to about already a 4.7% hit, if you will, for a starting point on the budget. So there's obviously work to do, but and again, we have to. We aren't the only ones that, again, for the OPP. All across the province, communities are seeing these double-digit increases. I saw just before I came in tonight. Not every municipality in Renfrew County, but most responded, and they're all, I think the lowest was Horton at 17% increase. I think we're at the 18%. There's some places that are 23, 22% increases. So I do believe, too, it is going on the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus agenda. That's what I heard for the next meeting. So it is causing a bit of a stir. Sioux Lookout, if we were feeling bad for ourselves, they're about 5,800 people, and they're having a $1.1 million increase. So there's something we need to dive in on that formula, but I honestly don't know how much say we really have, but I think it's something we have to pay attention to and understand and educate people that when we call the police, yes, if you need them, call them, but there is a cost. So if there's frivolous calls, it is hurting us. But anyway, with any, I'll turn it back if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, John. So everybody's got the dates. Obviously encourage everyone to put that time aside. Any other questions for Sean and Alan?
Should we be sending a letter of displeasure to somebody on the OPP funding increases? If we don't say anything, then people just say you accept it. I think we need to send something to Yakubuski or whoever, just.
I mean, I don't know if it's hit the county table. I mean, certainly it's hit ours. I think maybe at this point it might be value to see what comes out and just get some flow, but I think by the end of the, at some point, when we get some kind of, as I told Sean, we need to kind of maybe ask the question at least to say, what's the increase for, or how does it affect? What was in my opinion, what was the 2024 police budget and what is the projected 2025 that's increasing? Must be huge, but we can certainly write a letter.
Well, I think if we just sit back and bury our heads in the sand, then they say, well, they accepted it, and life goes on, right? I think we need to say something if it's asked the question, whatever it is, but I don't think we should just sit back and do absolutely nothing. I think we should do something. And if your suggestion is to write a letter and ask these questions of the Solicitor General and CC Yakubuski on it, then so be it.
I think it's probably good to do it now, do it early, to get on that bandwagon, and, you know, down the road, if we find out the reasons why, well, then we have to live with it, but I really think it's a huge increase to a municipality our size, or any municipality, but, I think our voice should be heard right away.
Okay.
Okay, Brian?
So on that increase, the OPP costs used to be based on number of hours, number of calls, number of hours on the calls and all that kind of stuff. And we had meetings and we were trying to reduce the frivolous calls and those sorts of things to keep the numbers down. Is it still based on usage and calls? Have they gone up, or is it something else in the funding?
So there's two parts. There is that part. So that's what's the call for service portion, and that is based on your, I think, 3 or 4 year running average, and then they have a formula, however they come up with it, like different types of calls require a different dollar figure. But then they also have base service. So the base services, it's about $190 now per property. So that's not based on calls for service. So there's those two portions of it. Now I'm thinking, I haven't really had the opportunity to like dive into it, but I'm thinking that the issue is they had some renegotiations of agreements, and I know I just was earlier before the meeting was looking at a cost per inspector. Say they have it broken down what that is for one inspector, and that's gone up I think like 20,000 right there. So I'm assuming that the driver is increase in wages, but I don't want to really say that till I really dive into it. But that's what I think. And I think, Reeve Watt, you sent me an email on some of the, that they had renegotiated some of the contracts and whatnot. So, and there's retro pay in there, and yeah.
We'll get more of a picture of it, for sure.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a motion there.
Need a motion?
Yeah.
Jennifer Nell?
Moved by Councillor Gauthier, second by Councillor Wren, that the Corporate Service Protection Committee recommends council receive the proposed 2025 operating and capital budget timeline.
All in favor? Carried. Pembroke Area Warming Center.
Okay, so this report is coming forward from the group that we were part of last year. They're reactivating it, I believe, is what the thought process is. So they're asking to see if we, again, want to partner in the grouping with, I believe it's the county, the city, and Town of Petawawa and ourselves. So I don't think there's much more. I mean, it's not all the details have been obviously finalized. I know from what I gather from the city, they have not fully decided on what exactly they're going to do. The county has, and maybe Ray Watt can comment more, they have committed to it using the MISA program, I believe. There is no set that it is going to be the grind that's going to run it. Am I correct in stating that? Anyway, so that's kind of the stuff. But anyway, you can see the email correspondence that's there. There's a chain there. And then the report that came from the grind. And then also the memo that was there for 24-25. So, yeah.
The county said that they would take the lead on it if, and under those conditions, that the two townships who participated last year participate this year as well. There is no final decision as to location change or whatever. That's up to the city of Pembroke, and but they will look at it from then on. I guess last year when it came up in 2023, it was kind of at the last minute item, and I thought that it should not be borne to us on a regular basis, not an annual basis, that it should be in our bailiwick. We pay taxes, and we contribute to the county, and our municipality, we're paying double in that respect.
Just maybe just a follow-up to that, I did get an email, I guess, and maybe the mayor got it too, I don't know who CC'd, but the town of Petawawa did agree to contribute 20,000 and appoint a member, which they didn't do last year, but they agreed to appoint a member to the committee, so that's just information as of last night.
Al?
My concern is, here we go again, it's October, the weather's starting to change, and all of a sudden, we're deciding what we're gonna do for the winter. There were, all these questions were going around in the spring, and basically what I heard in the spring was, it was a one time, and we're done, it's not happening again, and now here we are, that they're trying to resurrect it all over again. This shouldn't be happening. Everybody has budgets. All the municipalities know that. We had to scramble last year to find the money, and here we are again in the 11th hour, being asked to scramble for that money again. I have a real problem with that.
Brian?
I guess my problem with it is that they don't have a budget that they're showing us, that they have got additional funding from the province, and the initial startup costs of all the chairs and equipment has already been incurred, and yet we're still being asked to just contribute the same amount without seeing any figures. And
Okay, Jennifer?
The chairs were donated.
What's that, sorry?
The chairs were donated. There was no cost. They have everything that, well, no, they would have to rent the CCAN again, and the security, and the food. The chairs were nothing.
Most, from what I can see, there's been a few emails go back and forth, and there seems to be, as I said to Dean, a bit of a delay in the beginning again. Not sure why that is. I don't know who's to take the blame for not starting it earlier. Some of the comments around the table, Jennifer would confirm that we kind of thought if the program was going to run again, it would begin, the process would begin earlier. Whatever it is, I guess we all knew it was going to come eventually. My understanding is that the grind is willing to do it again. Dean, I think you've got maybe part of a letter there. And I think their budget would be similar. There might be some costs that wouldn't be included this year as to, I think the ramp was maybe part of last year's costs. I don't know if all the chairs are donated, but most of them were. But it is something that I think council should get more information on it as to what the budget's going to be this year. I also did talk to a few county employees, you know, and saying that I believe, our council believes it's either a county issue or really, truly, it's probably a provincial issue. But obviously the province isn't ready to contribute yet. Certainly we're not going to get any more from the county, as Keith said, we're paying double, but some of the municipalities are, some of the other 17 municipalities are paying towards this through county taxes, and they don't have the issue in their municipalities. So I kind of see their point as well. But in any event, it's going to happen again. If council's not ready to make a decision tonight, then we could table the motion until we could just advise them that council's not ready to make a decision until we see a budget. If that's what you want, or somebody can make a motion to put 20,000 ahead.
I believe that we need to table it because we don't have any financial, I don't see how we can do it. And I do remember our recommendation last year was, when we gave what we gave, was because it was an emergency and it was a one-time, I thought that's what our motion was last year.
Al?
I think we need more information. They might rent a CCAN again, they might not. They don't know where they're gonna put it. There's lots of unknowns at this point. I know that last year, one of the last minute things that came out was all the food that they were serving to anybody in there had to be prepackaged, which the grind can can give them food that's not prepackaged, but as soon as they take it to a trailer now, it has to be prepackaged, and that basically doubled the price of the food that they were supplying. So we need a lot more information on how this is gonna run, where it's gonna be run. I've heard rumors that they were looking at moving it to another facility and not renting the CCAN. There's all kinds of rumors going on, but we really have no solid information.
Let me just confirm, we haven't really received a formal request for the
Well, I think the
20,000?
grind kind of was the one who started it. They didn't really ask for a formal, the county in that email chain suggested that, you know, each municipality be requested to participate, and that's, I think that's as formal as it got. It's, so, yeah, so it's, you know, they're looking for partnerships. I mean, again, I think it's the county. We're not sure exactly who's running, in our opinion, we're not sure if it's the county. I know it seems to be the county, but where the city falls into that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I'd just add, it's like there's no long-range plan. What is the direction in the future years? Is this going to be an annual thing? Is Mesa going to take care of these homeless people and not have any anymore? Or will there be a place for them? It's difficult right now. We've got huge costs coming up, well over a 4% increase right off the bat. This is going to add to it. We need to be conscious of our ratepayers.
Yeah, it's a tough call for sure. All we can do is go back, and I don't think anybody has a long-term solution because nobody knows when and if the province is gonna kick in. You know, and until then, kudos to the county to give 100. But there, to me, I have not heard of any long-range forecast. I think they're trying to look at doing the same plan as last year. Security is a huge part of it, like big dollars. There was I don't know, did we forward the budget that we saw, Dean, from last year? I think he was in one of these emails.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
The cost breakdown, so you saw all the costs. So costs are gonna be very similar to last year. There's no doubt. But I guess we just need a confirmation from the county or the grind, whoever's heading, as to, here's the budget. This is what we plan to do again.
I'm not saying it's not needed.
Absolutely, it's needed, but who does it fall under? You know, there's definitely a need in the area. You looked at the numbers. There's obviously some Laurentian Valley residents there. How many, we don't know. But it's a need not only here, but everywhere. But if council wishes to table it tonight, we'll bring it back. Can we bring it back to the next meeting, Dean?
Yeah, I prefer to pass a motion here just so we get some direction, but the idea would be that we obtain more information in budget proposal. So if somebody has a motion to move it, I'll move. Pass it.
Alan and Brian?
Moved by Councillor Rand, second by Councillor Ugly, that Corporate Service and Protection Committee receive the report as information and direct staff to gather more information on budget proposal before finalizing a final decision to the Township's commitment to the Pembroke Area Warming Center Committee for 24-25 year.
All in favor? Carried.
Okay.
Library services options.
Laurie, are you doing that one, or am I, or do you, I mean, you did all the work, I don't take any of the glory, so. Not that there's any glory to go with it, but. This stems back to our discussion when we, earlier in the year, I know some council members wanted us to explore. Laurie did a lot of work to kind of gather this. We had several meetings. We had some with some outside agencies, some library agencies, and this is the results of that. So with that, I'm going to let Laurie maybe summarize what she got for the most part.
That pretty much sums it up. But yes, we had, we've been looking at it for over the last several months. We've been on to some of the websites that were provided. We went to, it was a government website, let me just see here, on public library statistics. So part of those statistics were included in the report as well. So it showed contracting organizations. So we would be, the Township of Laurentian Valley would be a contracting organization. So there are other municipalities that are doing that as well. So that was part of the package. So it showed how much the population served, the number of households, the provincial grant, and the local library support. And that, so our name was in there, and along with others. So we fell in as far as sort of middle range as far as the household numbers. And also in there was some others, just a second here. Oh, I don't have it there. A copy of the agreement. So it was just to kind of give you an idea what you may be able to consider with moving forward. So we had status quo, continue with the contract with the services with the Pembroke Public Library, establish our own library board, enter into contract with another municipality for library services upon an agreement, to not provide library services, noting that this option does not limit a resident to join a neighboring library, and it would require that the resident to pay a non-member fee. And the last option we had noted was to terminate the contract and offer reimbursement to a determined number of library cards per household. So all the same things everyone had discussed at previous meetings. It's just laying out that based on the research we found, those were the options to consider. So.
And maybe I can just add, we did have a conversation with a library group. Just escapes me as the exact name of the group. Do you have that, Laurie? Anyway, it's a provincial agency that kind of an ad hoc library group, figuring that we possibly, I think Councillor Hughley had brought it up, that maybe there was some ability to do an online thing. They don't provide any online right now. They're looking at it, they're talking about it, but at this point, there's nobody in the province that's doing any kind of just strictly online, like where we can go into an e-book store and rent books. So that's not available to us. And even if we did that to join something with them, we would have to create our own board, have our own board of directors, have our own library board, and have some abilities through that. You secretary, treasurer, all them staff people. So we're creating our own board. But we would be using them to provide a bit of service, but it's not nothing electronic. So it didn't really materialize. I mean, the only other one is to do kind of propose to another municipality, local municipality. And I know we did do some of that and looked into that. We didn't finalize that. And if council wants us to go down that path, we could. At the time, they weren't really, our neighbor on the other side wasn't really that interested from what we gathered. So at this point, unfortunately, we don't have much to recommend to council, so that's the report. And just looking for some feedback from council.
I just wanted to add one other thing too, going with what Dean said about creating our own board. We have to keep in mind that even if you were to do it a virtual one, that you're not in contravention of the Act, because it does talk about having a comprehensive and efficient public library service. So it may not be efficient to have just online services. It may not be efficient just to have just a room of books either. So there's a lot of, we have to make sure that that's something that's considered if that were one of the choices.
My understanding with our neighbor is that they don't have the capacity yet to look at another municipality coming in. I think they're kind of in limbo, just kind of as they are with recreation, is where they're going in the near future, so. Keith.
Did staff happen to look at other municipalities that are contracted with a library with similar size, population, in the grant, but as to how much they actually pay to the main library? That's just a grant amount shown there. But the actual contracted amount on an annual basis, I'm just looking for comparison.
Well, we did, if you look at the attachments to the report, there's some provincial kind of stats that are given there. Unfortunately, we weren't in a real position to figure, the numbers are all over the map. If you can see where you talk about the provincial grants are all listed there. You talk about the number of households are listed there, and you also talk about population served. And when you look at that, it certainly looks like we're higher per capita, like when you take those numbers. But having said that, we're not sure of the services. So you're not sure, I mean, if you look at us and For instance, McDougall municipality, which is 2,700, about a quarter of our population, half of our households, they're at 41,000, and they're getting 7,500, they're getting half. Everything is half, but they're contributing 41,000. We're paying, at this point, when we were doing this, we were at 135. So yes, the value is higher, but again, we didn't look at the services that were provided by that group. But there are some that are equivalent. I mean, you know, if you look at McNabb Braeside, very similar to us, 7,100 people, 3,200 households, you know, maybe a little less if you want to look at that. And their grant is a little less, but they're paying 138,000. So it just depends. There was no real kind of, it was hard to dissect. We didn't phone them all to see what services you're getting or nothing. But when you look at this, it's good stats. I mean, certainly we're on the higher end, there's no doubt. But again, I don't know what services we're getting as opposed to others.
Even if you look at Pembroke's there, was their budget 604? I thought it was more than that. I thought it was like one.
These stats are based on 2022, so
Okay.
just, sorry,
Still,
yeah.
okay. So what's council's wishes? Status quo for now, Brian?
So I guess it does at least illustrate that we are in fact paying our fair share. We keep on getting told by the city that we're not paying our fair share, and I think this pretty much says we are.
And if you look at the stats from the library report that we got in our package, still around 26, 25, 27, it's not changing. You know, so we're using 25%. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just leave it as information for now. Okay. We've done fire department, festival hall.
Nothing to report
Okay.
other than till later on.
Library, Wendy?
Everything is attached, so unless you have any questions.
It was mentioned in there something about you need a letter from the mayor. Where did I see that? In the minutes? It escapes me why, but I can't.
It escapes me as well, actually.
Sorry. Okay, we'll figure that out after, and if we need something, we'll put something together for you. Move down to Public Works and radar speed cameras. Sorry, Wendy, did you have anything else? No, you're good. Okay. Mark?
Good evening, Mayor Bennett and members of council. My report tonight is on proposed automated speed enforcement through the county of Renfrew. There is a letter attached, but the township did receive a request for some information from the county of Renfrew on the proposed implementation of automated speed enforcement. This would be for essentially traffic cameras through any municipalities in the county of Renfrew and the city of Pembroke. Through the Highway Traffic Act, it does permit the use of automated speed enforcement in both community safety zones and school zones where the speed limit is posted less than 80 kilometers an hour. The county has started a process for the automated speed enforcement, and through the letter has reached out for input, consultation, questions, any information that local municipalities may have. The letter, as mentioned, is attached for review. Through the county's proposal, it would be partnering with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Local Authority Services that would supply the equipment required and the data processing as well. Further, the county would assume all responsibilities and costs associated with the automated speed enforcement. And in their letter, they note that any revenue which may result from the program would be retained by the County of Renfrew Provincial Offences Court. Looking through the counties, or for the township, information, we do have currently 6 community safety zones. Those zones are all related to parks and recreation facilities that we have. Something I note with the recent creation of Elgin Street Park, we should probably look at implementing a community safety zone there, just so it keeps things standard. In our park areas, all of the posted speed limits are 40 kilometers an hour, and we have that set through all of the parks that are in the township. The township does have one school zone, which is Rockwood Public School. That is on a county road, so it would be their jurisdiction. The posted speed limit is 70 kilometers an hour, and I know after several attempts at requesting a speed limit reduction and not getting a lot of response back from the county, we did probably 4 or 5 years ago request implementation of the community safety zone, which the county did accept and post. So the community safety zone is already in place at Rockwood School and would fit into the criteria they're proposing. A community safety zone in the Highway Traffic Act is designated, as the council of a municipality may by bylaw designate a part of a highway under its jurisdiction as a community safety zone. In the council's opinion, for public safety is a special of concern for part of the highway. So right now we do have the 6. We'll probably look at adding Elgin Street, but we can, I guess moving forward, we can ask the county if that's council's wishes to take over and add our 6 zones, but potentially 7 to them. To add them, we can potentially research other areas if maybe council has concerns on speeding in some of these areas that we could feel that it may be warranted. So right now the council's just looking, county council's looking for direction, input, any questions we may have on their policy. And so I'll open the floor to council if there's any questions on their process, anything they'd like us to send back in our response, and any thoughts on the process.
Brian?
So would these be fixed cameras, or would they be like the speed boards where they rotate around on a rotating basis?
I think for this, it's fixed camera, be passed in bylaw, and they'd be there as a permanent fixture. Not saying after a few years they couldn't relocate them, but my understanding it's a fixed camera.
So it's more like the 407 or 401, they have these speed traps and...
Yeah, City of Ottawa, there's lots. I know they keep expanding the network, and I know it started really, I think for what I've read in the City of Ottawa was school zones, and they've expanded to communities, and again, as the Highway Traffic Act says, it's areas that the council kind of would feel maybe there's some concerns for safety, and then they can implement those zones.
I can certainly vouch that the City of Ottawa does have them.
Yeah, me too.
Jennifer?
Could we recommend something other than just a school zone, or I'm talking my road, so TB Tower, they're still parking on both sides of the street, whether we have signages or not. The other day, it read on the thing, the guy was doing 103 and went to pass, and there was a bicycle trying to cross. Like, I think something's gonna really happen bad in that area.
Yeah.
It's like they see that and they're like, oh, I wanna see if I can beat it, or how high can I, some people do think like that, but I think someone is going to get seriously hurt on that trail, crossing the road, especially when they can't really see because of the traffic parked on either side.
Yeah, so in that instance, it's county road, so
Right.
I guess first step would be, because it's 80 kilometers an hour, we'd have to request the county to do a speed reduction to 70, so it fits within that community safety zone, and then ask if they would post that as a community safety zone, and that's where it does say that council does have the decision if there's a consensus that there are safety concerns there, that we could ask the county for that speed reduction and the implementation of that. And I think that's some of the information that they're looking for in their fact finding right now.
So I guess really what the county is asking for is, where do we want them?
Yes, yeah.
Al?
Betty was first, though.
Betty?
I would kind of go along with that. Any place where the Algonquin Trail crosses would be considered a community safety zone, because you do have a lot of the public crossing with bicycles or walkers, or, I mean, I don't mean walkers, I mean people walking. But, yeah, I think that would be definitely something where we would start looking at implementing, lowering the speed limit and putting a safety zone in there.
Okay.
Al?
So there's absolutely no financial benefit to the municipality, all the financial benefit is to the county of Brantford.
That's how, yeah, it reads in their policy.
Why wouldn't we as a municipality put the cameras in ourselves and get the return on the investment?
Yeah, and it would, we could contact the Association of the Municipalities of Ontario and find out what it is, and, you know, I'm not sure what the county would pay to them for a cost, but we could do it. I don't know what the cost would be to sort of get that started and what the background would be, but if we wanted revenue through our own, we could look at that option.
Or at least some type of shared revenue, if they're going to start coming into our municipality and putting up infrastructure to make money on it. And don't get me wrong, the benefit to the municipality is you're going to improve safety. But then there's also the financial benefit, and they're taking all of the financial benefit.
Yeah, and that was sort of when I read through a question I had, and that's something that in our list of questions back, that's something we could ask, if there would be a potential cost share from the county for the, you know, the cameras and enforcement that's happening in our municipality.
On our roads?
Yes, on it, yeah.
I get the county roads, but.
Yeah, I guess there's a POA issue too, though. The POA, the money does go to the county, so I don't know, and how we get that corrected. I mean, even now, for instance, any kind of tickets that's given in our municipality all goes to the county. It's all through the POA, right? So, but it might be something to, but I think at this point, I think the structure here is council okay with them trying it on our, you know, on our road? Well, I mean, I think it's their own roads, so they'll make their own decision, but they're asking if we have any comments of where you see them on their roads. They're not really asking us for our roads right now. They're asking for their own. That's the way I take it anyway.
Yeah, well, they do ask where they are in our community,
Yes.
so we'll provide our list. And, you know, I look at some of our roads and, you know, in some of our parks, they're in built-up areas, and even if the county was, you know, looking to implement on township roads, they may say, there's always stops, it's hard to, you know, get over that 40 kilometers an hour, and they may even have a criteria that say not justified in some of them too, right? But it's, but I think we can at least, you know, maybe, as Councillor Wren noted, ask a question about the financial end. We can provide the list of our community safety zones, definitely, you know, I think suggest for Rockwood School that the cameras go in. I mean, with the no buses, and yes, that looks like it's hopefully going to be corrected soon, but the traffic has gotten better, but it's still, there's a lot of congestion and higher rates of speed there as well.
Brian, you had a question?
So just based on the driving habits of those around this table here, it looks like it has the potential for being a real cash cow for the county. My question is, are the funds going to be designated for a specific use or purpose, or is there potential for, you know, reduction in, you know, what will they use them for?
Okay, yeah, and I'll add that in the letter. So I'll draft a letter from I guess under Mayor Bennett to send back, and I'll send it out the draft to council for comments, and just to make sure that I captured everything from the conversation tonight, and we'll get that sent back.
Okay, Betty?
With the increase in the OPP and they put these in, would that then drop the need for a lot of the OPP officers and hopefully save some money that way?
May take a while. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Okay, I'll get something drafted up and out for review. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Can I get a motion?
Can I have a motion? Jennifer and Ellen.
Moved by Councillor Goche, second by Councillor Wren, that the Corporate Services and Protection Committee agree to send municipal comments to the county in the form of a letter.
Okay, subcommittee, Ottawa Valley Waste, we have a meeting next week, so I have nothing to report. The fall collection is coming up though, eh, Mark? The fall collection is coming up?
No,
Or leaf and yard waste?
yeah, so there are some leaf and yard waste coming up. The large item collection wrapped up end of September. Haven't got any report back from waste recovery on amounts, but it was, from what we've seen, very little and very few, I'll say, violations or people that, you know, have left stuff out. It was pretty slow on that part.
Good. Okay, county council summary is there. If you had any questions for Keith, Brian does have one. You did have a lot of red circles tonight.
My question is with regards to the the destination tax, 4% going to the OVTA, and their estimate that at a 50% occupancy would be $397,000 to the OVTA. I think that's probably more than what their present budget is, and that's based on a 50%. And I was thinking that if there was going to be a destination tax like that, that could be a source of revenue for operating of the new rec center, because a lot of the hotel visits would be as a result of teams coming in for various tournaments and things. And I'm just, again, seeing more money going to the county than they need, and can we use that other places?
I think Sean would comment, he was part of a talk about that. If you can get the mic working.
I think that the 50% that has to go to a tourist organization. Like, I don't know much about. I mean, we were involved a little bit on it, but the 50% they have to designate that, and then the other 50% of it that I guess would be kept by the municipality would be, I would assume that they would, the councillors of the day would direct that probably into some economic development thing. But I know the 150% has to be designated to a tourist group. So I don't know. I don't know if that helps or hurts or hinders the question. I mean, I guess the council of the day could say, if they thought that it was economic development opportunity, that they could put that other 50% into a facility of some sort, or into something to attract more. I'm not sure if that answers that or not, but sorry if it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm just, we're in discussions now of a recplex, and it's the ongoing operational costs of it, and this is a way of trying to offset some of those operational costs with revenue that is going to be generated from its use. So I didn't think that it all needed to go to the OVTA and double their budget or.
Yeah, I think one of the issues, I think they have to designate an organization, a tourist or an economic development organization, to receive the funds. I don't think all of the funds could get kept. Now, the question may beg, can 25 go one way, 25 go to another group? I'm not sure on that, and I'm not sure on the eligibility to be a group to receive that 50%. Like, I think there's probably a parameter that you have to meet to be eligible.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not saying take it all away from the OVTA, but I don't think they need to generate more from this than what their current budget even is.
So we're not involved in that right now? It's just Pembroke and Petawawa? Why are we not involved?
Well, it really was not really ever brought. I think we brought it early on, like when they first discussed it, and there was no interest. But there was no interest from any municipality. Now some have jumped on. I mean, again, we don't really have, we have one motel, so that's not really a generator for us, I guess, but.
But it also includes campgrounds and.
Yeah, I guess there's some of that, yeah. Yeah, but I don't even know those as well, right? So it's not a real bailiwick for us, and although we should probably, for the sake of everybody involved community-wise, we should probably be implementing something so everybody's playing with the same pace.
Yeah, level playing field.
Yeah, but anyway, that doesn't really.
But it's kind of
high on our agenda.
It's kind of a turnaround, because a few years ago.
Or have our businesses, it'd be 4% less than everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay, that ends that one. Anything else for Keith? Council acknowledgements. Maybe I'll bring it up that because I guess we're gonna have to add a subcommittee for the city, or is that coming under, for our recreation group that we formed? We'll have a report under that for each month as we go along. Would we be under?
Oh, I see, a subcommittee. Yeah, I guess once we get going, we'll do something. Yeah, we'll figure out.
So just a heads up to everybody, we did have one meeting with Brian and Jennifer, myself, and 3 councillors from the city. Kind of discussed everybody's idea of what complex could be down the road, what should be in it, what shouldn't be in it. It kind of came at the end of the day through Dave Unruh's recommendation that It's a pretty big project, tens of millions of dollars that could be spent on this project, that we should have a coordinator run us through this whole program. It was discussed that the consultant, we asked Dave and Dean to do a research on consultants that have done similar projects in the past, and hopefully get the opportunity to interview a couple of them before we make a decision. If it does come to fruition, then as council had said at the beginning, that we would have to bring a budget back to council to approve before we were to move forward and hire anybody. But spending where we're gonna be 30, 40, 50 million dollars, it's too big a project to lay on staff. And I think we should have someone that has the expertise in the background, is how the committee felt. So there's still lots in the air. We haven't brought anybody else in yet. A lot of questions to be answered, but I think that would be done through the consultant. Jennifer or Brian, either one of you can add to that. Okay. Al?
So the age-old question, Highway 148 and traffic lights at Drive-In Road. I see the electrical grid is basically done, and I don't see any temporary posts up for traffic lights that were originally promised in the fall of this year. Now I'm hearing rumors that maybe by the end of next year, maybe by next spring. I think we need to get a handle on this once and for all, and this project is getting like totally ridiculous.
Maybe I can just add, I did pose to Mr. Belanger early September. He was going away. He would get back to me. I did send him an email last week saying we need an update on it. Since though I can say that they have, we've got notice that they will be doing the proposal. The request for tender is going out, so there will be some action taken. There'll be a contractor being selected in the next, 3 or 4 months. So hopefully, and he did, I mean,
That's
initially.
the road works though.
Yeah, but yeah, I know, but it's all part of the same package. It's all.
But we were promised the temporary lights at Drive-In Road this fall.
If they could get the land, and they never got the land, so that's unfortunately. I mean, yeah, I know, I agree with you. It's frustrating. It's again, but he did say that the tender will have the lights first thing as part of the project. That's what. But I'm still waiting for a final update. Again, to see where we're at. So I have not received anything from Chris, which reminds me. Yep.
And so just to go back on what Chris is saying, he told us that the lights would be separate from the whole tendering process, that the lights would get done on their own if they could be, and the tendering process would be a separate process. Now he's pushing it all together, so that tells me that we're probably looking at sometime mid-summer next year. So we're almost at another year, which is gonna put us, what, Steve, 7 or 8 years behind schedule now?
Absolutely.
Doesn't make any sense.
I think we need either to have Chris back up again, or.
Well, we just need an update. I mean,
Yeah,
we bring them up. It's the same story. Unfortunately, it's not as.
Well, we
easy.
just need an update. It's been a while.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need that update, and we need it soon. Anything else, folks? Seeing none, get a motion to go in closed. Wendy and Brian?
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, second by Councillor Ugly, that the special council meeting, that the committee and council meeting of October 8th, 2024 move into closed session at 7:40. Chaired by Mayor Bennett, according to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Section 239.2, Section 239.3, and Section 239.3.1, in order to address a matter pertaining to proposed, litigation, potential litigation, including boards and administrative tribunals. Jay's trying to get that out of there.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, I could probably say it better. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting municipality or local board.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, welcome back to council. Dean, move back.
Motion,
back
please.
to open session.
Move to council, please. There, motion.
Motion. Brian and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Yuli, second by Councillor Gauthier, that the council and committee meeting of October 8th, 2024 move back into open session at 8:20.
All in favor? Carried. We have a motion on the festival hall.
Yeah, notice, yeah. Notice. Mover and a seconder, please.
Betty and Wendy.
Moved by Councillor King, second by Councillor Hewitt, that the Township of Laurentian Valley direct staff to proceed with an amendment to Festival Hall Management Agreement with Adventure Entertainment, including a revised contract termination date of December 31st, 2024, and that further that the Township of Laurentian Valley Council endorse the Festival Hall Consortium to proceed with a request for a proposal for the management service of the Festival Hall, understanding that it is distributed as soon as possible to allow for successful transition between the outgoing and incoming provider.
All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn.
Movers.
And Brian.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, second by Councillor Hughley, that the council and committee meeting of October 8th, 2024 be adjourned at 8:20.
All in favor? Thank you. Good night.